Okay, here we are. Hi everyone, welcome. All right, let's get us started. So what if you could position yourself at the forefront of the most transformative shift in healthcare history, and you didn't need a medical degree or insider connections to access the AI-powered startups that will solve healthcare's $4.9 trillion bottleneck? You'll discover today how artificial intelligence is revolutionizing healthcare across 5 critical areas, from freeing physicians from documentation burdens to detecting diseases that human eyes miss entirely. Investing in healthcare AI isn't just about capturing returns from a massive market opportunity, it's also about being part of the solution to physician burnout, patient access barriers, and the inefficiencies that plague our healthcare system. With Alumni Ventures HealthTech Syndicate, you can have ownership in companies that are fundamentally changing how we diagnose, treat, and manage health. See the deals and invest only if you choose. Now we're going to throw this over to Mike to take us away. Mike?
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to walk you through what I believe is not only the most important changes in healthcare, but also one of the greatest investment opportunities of the decade, which is the rise of AI in healthcare. So a little bit of framing up front and how we'll spend our time together today. I'll start with a quick introduction and my journey in both venture capital and in the healthcare industry. Then I'd like to set the stage really talking about what is the big healthcare crisis, why it's both a challenge and at the same time an unprecedented investment opportunity. From there, we will look at why right now is AI's breakthrough moment in healthcare. And then from there, I'll walk through 5 categories of AI that are already shaping, care delivery, healthcare infrastructure, and the future of frontier science. From there, I'll show you how Alumni Ventures is investing across this full stack, alongside our, amazing lead investors and friends like Andreessen Horowitz, MEA, ADC, General Catalyst, and more. From there, I'll do a quick reminder on how you can actually join us through our healthcare syndicate, which is a really flexible way to access these deals directly on your own terms. And then lastly, we'll do a quick Q&A. But before I start, I need to share this up front. Quick disclosure, today's session reflects Alumni Ventures' perspective on healthcare and investing. It's purely informational. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. If you're interested, please reach out. You can do that through our formal offerings. So with that said, let's dive right in. And I want to introduce myself a bit more here. So really excited to be speaking with you all today. My name's Mike Peri. I'm a managing partner at Alumni Ventures, and I help lead our healthcare investing practice and syndicate. In terms of my background, I kicked off my venture capital and startup operating career nearly 16 years ago. Straight out of undergrad, I guess, looking back at it, I had the privilege of jumping straight into the world of VC and startups, but I will say it was largely due to graduating amid the financial crisis where all the job offers disappeared, but it certainly worked out. After a health tech startup attempt in my early 20s, I was absolutely hooked. So from there, I was working in new venture roles and strategy in the healthcare industry. I also joined 7Wire Ventures, a prominent healthcare fund, to incubate, scale, and exit a company called Yarrow Health. We raised multiple rounds of financing. I oversaw product analytics and really learned a lot by being in that operating role. Transitioning from the building and operating side of venture to full-time venture investing, I became a partner at a fund called Distributed Ventures. There I was leading a lot of early stage thematic investments across digital health, insurance, financial services, and a lot of infrastructure behind these large regulated industries. After several years there, I actually returned back to Pure Healthcare, this time to help institutionalize the venture strategy for CVS Health. I was a lead director on the team, and I spearheaded investments across the spectrum. So both early stage and growth stage companies, and I also did fund-to-fund investing. Ultimately, this journey brought me to Alumni Ventures, where I'm leveraging this comprehensive understanding of the venture and startup landscape to partner with exceptional investors and entrepreneurs. And quick plug, as for my alumni connection, it's always fun to talk about this. I hold a master's degree from the University of Chicago's Data Science Institute, and I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Iowa. So really, really excited to be speaking with all of you. So that's a bit about me. Quick on Alumni Ventures for those who may be unfamiliar. We were founded to give individuals access to diversified venture platform. And although that sounds simple, the team has really moved mountains over the last 10 plus years. So today, we're very proud to be one of the most active VCs in the US. We have offices across America. We've raised over 1.5 billion in capital, and we've had the privilege of investing that into 1,600 portfolio companies and growing. In terms of our model, we co-invest with these tier one firms and have been, once again, recognized by doing that model. We're really proud of the performance. So as I mentioned, always one of the most active. Recently, we've been getting accolades in terms of performance and where we rank across the broader venture landscape. So we're really proud of all these accomplishments, and we really couldn't do it without our 11,000 plus investors. So to those on the line, thank you if you're already part of that journey, and really excited to be speaking to those that might be interested in joining for the first time. And in terms of joining, I want to take a quick minute here before we get into a lot of the detail to really talk about how this works. So really excited to introduce the Health Tech Syndicate. And at a high level, what this is an investment approach where you would be getting the same healthcare deals our funds are doing, but instead of getting it as a portfolio, you're seeing 1 to 2 carefully curated opportunities per month. Similar to anything we do, in this we'd be sharing and communicating our thesis, our diligence, the broader market work for you to be able to make that informed decision. And it's really straightforward. So joining is totally free, investing is optional. And it's straightforward. If a deal resonates, you can participate. Minimum check sizes here, $10,000. And in doing so, you can build a personalized health tech venture portfolio over time. Think of it as the same institutional access as our funds, but with even more flexibility to invest in the opportunities of your liking versus the entire health tech fund, for example. So we're really excited to be offering this side by side with our funds. So with that, all right. So why healthcare? I think that's a good question. And I want to take a step back and really talk about what's happening and why we think this is an amazing time to be investing in healthcare. As you look at just in the US, America is spending over $4.9 trillion on healthcare every single year, just a mind-boggling number. For perspective, that's nearly 20% of the US GDP. If you think of that, right, our healthcare system alone is oftentimes much larger than the entire economies of developed countries. For example, it's larger than the economy of Germany or the United Kingdom and India. So if you think of the US healthcare as its own country, it would essentially be the third largest economy in the world, behind the likes of US and China. And yet, despite the staggering level of spend, I think we all feel the pain, right? As patients, we wait weeks for appointment, we're paying a lot of money, the clinicians are drowning in administrative tasks, and our health outcomes are actually lagging behind other developed nations, right? So you have a lot of statistics and research out there, estimating that about a quarter of the time and money in healthcare is actually, due to waste or inefficiency. And on the backdrop of that, we also are projecting shortages of doctors and healthcare professionals over the next decade, all while hospitals continue to lose billions of dollars due to inefficiencies. And this is the same time that we as families and consumers are facing these rising costs. So this is this bottleneck, right? We face this tightening at this convergence of what I would say is access, quality, and cost. And because of that, it's also why AI is having its breakthrough moment in healthcare, because the system isn't just expensive, it's totally unsustainable. Now, from there, thinking about, okay, so what else is happening? And what I want to highlight here, and although these aren't the only three market forces, I think this is a great place to start to really understand a lot of these breakout signals. So first thing is on the demand side. As consumers, we are told to engage early and often in healthcare, and we should be doing that. But at the same time, we have incredible burnout and staffing shortages. And this requires solutions that give time back to the individuals providing our care. Second is the technology side. So, broadly speaking, AI has started to and really, matured across this reliability threshold, right? This can be from Ambient AI to vision to evidence copilots. All of these are reducing work. They're not adding clicks or checkboxes to workflows, but they're really reimagining the experience in the clinical setting. And then third is the capital, right? This category is scaling, and it's scaling rapidly. For example, in the first half of 2025, US digital health raised about $6.5 billion. Of that, over 60% went to AI-enabled startups. Not only on the private startup side, but what we're also starting to see is the public markets are really rewarding a lot of these scaled platforms in healthcare AI. For example, Tempus, Hinge Health, and others have all gone public and continue to perform. So really, the takeaway that I'd like to leave you with here is, yes, the healthcare market is quickly moving, but it's doing so in a way that is really advantageous for where we are in the venture landscape, right? These aren't just pilots anymore, they're actually scaling to enterprise deployments very fast. So, with this notion of the bottleneck and the issues we're facing at a high level, along with these converging factors and forces, what I want to do is I want to briefly touch on 5 categories that we are spending a lot of time looking at, and we're really excited to be in a position to invest in. So let's start with the first here. I kind of call this like from the documentation burden to the patient focus. And a lot of this has to do with ambient intelligence. So today, clinicians often spend, an hour or two, for example, on documentation for every hour that they see with patients, right? Totally unsustainable. And what we're seeing is ambient AI isn't just listening to the visit and helping, on the edges of it, but it's really turning natural conversations into scaled workflows, right? So these ambient technologies can structure notes, see through orders, coding, and all embedded within electronic medical records or the health record, the workflow itself. And this impact is immediate, right? Helps with burnout. It gives clinicians way more time with the patient to actually be engaged in real time, not sitting behind a computer just typing notes. And ultimately, the view is this can pull through to stronger revenue integrity for the system, stronger outcomes and care pathways for the patient. So really, it's a win-win. And in short, it's almost like these ambient technologies are turning documentation from what is a perceived tax that has to happen into an actual beneficial tailwind. So it's really exciting to be seeing these. Here, I just highlighted a few examples that I think are very present in the market. For example, Abridge, recently announced a large $300 million Series A in the summer of 2025. Valuation is already above $5 billion. They're live across hundreds of health systems. They're supporting millions of medical conversations, all while helping reduce clinical burnout, and ultimately just build a better experience between the clinician and the consumer. Same vein, Ambience Healthcare equally announced a large, $240 million plus Series C. Another company that has a valuation north of $1 billion, working with major health systems to deliver a lot of this, documentation, coding, and administrative workflows. So just a lot to like in this ambient world. From there, the second is really around clinical decision intelligence, right? And medical knowledge is expanding so fast, and it's so hard for any one individual to keep up. But now, we have evidence copilots, and we have real world data engines, and they're all there to help supercharge that discovery, that judgment, and just how we go about clinical decision making, right? And it's great because this is not replacing in any way, shape, or form, right? It's really strengthening and augmenting this clinical judgment, best for us as consumers, for the clinicians, for the entire system in general. We see this in tools that are, synthesizing peer-reviewed evidence for point-of-care decisions, or in precision platforms that combine, genomics and imaging and longitudinal data to guide therapy selection or drug discovery. And the outcomes are simply amazing, right? Faster, more accurate, better consistent care, hyper-personalized, just really doing what we want it to do, which is help us deliver and receive the best quality care. Similar, just want to highlight a couple examples that are really amazing in the market. OpenEvidence, evidence-based AI copilot for clinicians. They raised a large $200 million plus Series B this summer, valuation north of $3 billion, amazing investors, Google Ventures and others behind it. Platform is, helping physicians daily across all these different settings, handling, once again, millions of consultations and onboarding and everything else that's going on. Another one to highlight here, and not actually on the private side, but was for a long time, is Tempus. They were previously listed not too long ago. IPO continued to perform really well, and just an amazing, comprehensive AI precision medicine and data platform. This is one that big fan of. I happen to be in our Chicago office. The company's almost across the river for us, so really proud of what that company's been able to do. So then, as we think about, okay, you're talking about the ambient view, the co-piloting around decision making. Well, what about some of the infrastructure, right? And this is a lot of the, I would say, the plumbing behind all these AI victories is the view of how can we reimagine the infrastructure layer of healthcare. And in my perspective, AI is really only as good as the data and workflows it can touch, and sometimes these live behind the scenes, right? In my mind, infrastructure is the unsung hero. It's things like licensing and credentialing of providers. It's compliance. It's the secure movement of data. It's payments. It's claims. It's all these operational plumbing workflows that actually gets innovation to and from the point of care, right? These rails almost behave like Amazon Web Service or Stripe. It's just doing it for healthcare. And what's nice is, these are very sticky, great recurring revenue, but also mission critical solutions. And they monetize, every application that's basically built on them. So here highlighting three actual, Alumni Ventures portfolio companies that continue to do incredibly well. We have Medallion, recently came back into a round, $40+ million round, August of this year, really reimagining licensing and credentialing for providers. And Clarion, similarly, north of $20 million in a Series A, we came in, really powering supply chain, but through an AI way, right? Helping transform supply and resiliency, predicting disruptions, substitutions, real-time data, all this amazing types of stuff. And then Anomaly, sitting kind of silently behind the scenes, reimagining how a visit at the point of care actually flows through the system from a payments perspective and understanding all of the infrastructure and platform that goes behind the scenes. So yes, it's the hidden layer, but it is incredibly powerful to really reimagine here. And then, moving forward, we think of, okay, well, what about as I'm coming back in and out? So almost this front door perspective as you come in and out of the system. And, in my perspective, I often say that, you know where the door is, but it feels like that front door is broken. As a patient, you can often kind of ping pong between call centers and forms and portals, and it's just a lot of friction, and you feel like you don't know where to go next. And that's on the consumer side, and also, conversely on the administrative side or the clinician side, they're also feeling that. So what we're seeing is, a lot of AI infrastructure and AI agents are quickly becoming that front door in a way that aligns with everyone's expectations. So these solutions could be, handling everything from intake, triage, they can be providing education, navigation, all with this consistent kind of 24/7 experience that everyone is really wishing that the healthcare system can provide. In doing so, the health systems themselves are also gaining capacity without adding headcount or cost, which, impacts our ability to hopefully have cheaper healthcare and services, right? And at the same time, patients are getting faster answers, fewer dead ends, and getting to where they need to be when they need to get there. And this is where you're seeing this view of access, revenue cycle, outcomes, patient satisfaction. They're all intersecting here. So, a few companies to highlight, Hippocratic AI, this is building a suite of kind of safety-focused generative AI across healthcare. This could be everything from workflow triage to post-operative guidance to education. Also raised a large Series B earlier in 2025, putting its valuation north of 1.5 billion. Another we're really excited about, HelloPatient in the AV portfolio, kind of reimagining the contact center, right? And saying this is a huge aspect of how the system engages with patients and how the patients are wanting to engage with their providers, and categorically kind of recreating what it means to be a contact center. And then the last one here, Citizen Health, also really cool, recently announced a large Series A this summer, led by HBC, really being the patient advocate and care coordinator for people who have complex issues or rare conditions, really being that first AI advocate for select patient communities, and launching across advocacy groups, expanding partnerships with pharma regulators, the health systems, caregivers. Just a really incredible platform that kind of reimagines that access point for individuals with these complex needs. And then, similarly, I would say to the ambient side, as we step forward to the next slide here, there's a lot in terms of, I would say like seeing and hearing and engaging with things we may miss in seconds as humans, right? Or not really be able to pick up on. So this is everything from diagnostics to more of the ambient side, right? You have computer vision, you have voice biomarkers, and these things are catching, I wouldn't say like what humans miss really, but that humans don't have the ability to pick up on early and at scale, right? Imaging AI flags time-sensitive findings in seconds or minutes. It doesn't take, months or weeks of certain testing. You could have screening models that compress costs and scan time. You can have voice-based AI, which can be, running in the background, screening for things like depression or anxiety, all while doing it in real interactions, right? Right, and then they pick up on that and they can route it to a human care when it's needed, right? And that team understands when they might need to intervene on something. So the value equation here is incredibly powerful, right? Earlier detection is really indicative of better outcomes, and then certainly lower downstream costs. So once again, providers, payers, really incentivized to pull a lot of this adoption forward, which is great for us as consumers. Once again, highlighting a few companies here, really proud of, a few within the portfolio like Ezra or Ellipsis. Ezra, that was actually a company we invested in early, doing full scanning. It was acquired by Function Health, which we also invested in now moving forward, kind of combining this extensive lab testing with this MRI technology to give people a full view of what's going on. Or Ellipsis, which recently closed a large, $45 million Series A this summer. They are leveraging biomarkers, vocal biomarkers, and real kind of patient conversation to triage a lot of emotional needs, provide follow-up care, medication reminders, escalate emergencies to humans, and more. So those are a few of the things that I wanted to highlight, across these categories. And it's great to step into where and how and why we want to invest, and that really kind of allows me to synthesize it a little bit. So as you take a step back and you understand, okay, this massive problem, you have these converging forces that are also happening, and very clear categories in which you can invest in. How is that forming almost a winning recipe, right? And as you step back, a lot of these breakout companies share a lot of similar traits that we're starting to see. So first, they're built in a really just like scalable, sticky way, right? These tend to be infrastructure, recurring revenue, core things to workflows or the ability to provide care. These are not one-off tools that are just nice to have. They are becoming embedded into everything that we do in healthcare. Second, they are delivering measurable return on investments, right? So everyone from the CFO to the chief medical officer are aligned. And this is really, really important, right? Once again, these are not the nice to haves. These are the things that are truly moving the needle from a cost perspective and a quality perspective. The third is how they embed within the system, right? These are seamless, often integrated models and solutions that are embedded straight into the existing workflows, right? And that really, really helps accelerate adoption and allows these companies to scale very quickly. And not only that, but then they're also benefiting from the data network effects that are going on, right? The more they run, the smarter, the more defensible they become. It's really great. And they're able to do all of this. And I mentioned this earlier. These are no longer pilots, right? They're moving very fast to become full enterprise deployments that are crucial to the future of how we assemble the American healthcare system, which is really fascinating. And kind of take a step back again, summarize this to give you a view of how we've thought about it over the last few months. Here's just a snapshot of how we think of like full stack healthcare AI and the investment approach, right? So I've highlighted a few of these. I won't step through all of them, but it's important and really fascinating to see how the AV portfolio and investment opportunities kind of span this full stack as we discussed, right? From the contact center of HelloPatient to the payments of Anomaly to the supply chain of Clarion to the clinical trial accelerations of Unlearn AI, right? These aren't the point solutions anymore. They are truly kind of the nervous system of modern healthcare. And although we are so excited about what we built, it's really important to know that we are still so early in being able to extract value and invest in the future of healthcare and healthcare AI. And we're incredibly excited about the pipeline that's ahead. So with that, I want to kind of come back to, especially for those who may be a little bit unfamiliar with AV again, just kind of allowing a few minutes to talk about our model once more. So as a reminder, want to speak to not only the signals and indications that we're looking at within a market, but also just how we think of venture kind of across the full firm. And one of the other signals we look at is really who else is around the table. So what you'll see here is an amazing collection of the who's who in venture, right? And these healthcare deals and deals in general that AV are doing, we're really, we feel great to be able to partner with such amazing lead investors and partners, the likes of NEA, Andreessen Horowitz, Khosla, General Catalyst, APCs, and others. And it helps for so many reasons. A couple to highlight. Obviously validates the quality at entry, and they're able to support companies that scale up and exit, and just really thoughtful investors who continue to push the boundaries, especially in healthcare, to really want to reimagine the future of what this system looks like. So those are great ways that we get to partner with all of these other firms. And then from the healthcare syndicate perspective itself, we really view this as an amazing time to kind of be part of this AI revolution in healthcare. So, if a lot of this is of interest of you, we'd be happy to connect. So feel free to reach out. And as a reminder, just want to emphasize again how this works and how you could participate. So you could join the healthcare syndicate. It's totally free to sign up. You'll see 1 to 2 deals per month. You'll get our thesis, the diligence for each to really get comfortable, understand how we're thinking about it. And if a deal fits your view, you invest at a 10K minimum. If it doesn't fit with your view, no problem. You don't have to invest. And you're still investing and co-investing alongside all these top firms that I mentioned, and the same opportunities that all of the AV funds are doing. It's just on your flexibility and on your terms of how you like to invest. In terms of getting up and running, it takes about 3 minutes to join. Please, you could scan this code and walk through the process very quickly. And I'll say this, even if you never invest, you will learn a ton from the content, the research, the webinars, the founder discussions, the deal memos. Our view is we are excited every day to wake up and invest in the future of healthcare, and we want other people to be equally as excited. So signing up is free, investing is optional, but I will say I think learning is almost guaranteed. So really excited for you all to potentially join us here. And then, as we wrap up, I want to jump into a few questions. We had a few come in advance, so thank you for those who sent it. So with that, I'll just jump in here. Okay, so first one is, who is eligible to join the syndicate, and how do I know if I can actually join? All right, good question. We get this a lot if you're new to AV. pretty high level and straightforward. So you must meet the SEC definition of an accredited investor. And this status is actually verified during a super simple, easy sign-up process. So if you're interested, you can literally scan this code right now. It takes about 3 minutes to complete, and we'll walk you through step by step on how you know if you meet the criteria of the accredited investor. The second question got asked here is, can I invest with retirement assets? Great question. We actually get asked this a lot. Yes, many investors at AV actually use self-directed IRAs. And in fact, I think the latest number was about 1/3 of our investors do so. So once again, we're happy to connect with you after the fact. We can share kind of a simple how-to if this is of interest for you. And by the way, what's important about this question is actually the long-term nature of venture capital aligns very nicely with retirement assets as you think about investing over a longer period of time. And I think that's why we see more and more people investing with retirement assets across AV. Okay, another one here. All right, this is getting more into the healthcare side. Healthcare is very regulated. How do you think about that? And, is it the same way? Can they scale similar to a lot of the other kind of pure play technology? Great question. I'm the healthcare guy. I love to nerd out on all this, but I'll keep it brief. Short answer is yes, absolutely. They can be regulated and they do scale. I would say a philosophy that we have in healthcare, even from the onset of the first conversation, is really looking at and investing and partnering with teams that design for the compliance and regulatory natures of their markets from day one. In healthcare, this could be anything from FDA to HIPAA, and all the kind of appropriate frameworks in between. And a lot of these groups are thinking, how do they do that from day one? And then certainly how can they partner with, maybe it's a provider system they work with or a health payer to really even localize the workflows and regulations at maybe the state level. And my view here is the best platforms and companies we invest in kind of start with regulation as a feature, and they don't retrofit for it. So we're often looking at a lot of this in our diligence, which, by the way, we do a lot of webinars and have a lot of educational content on how we evaluate deals. We'd be happy to share that with you all, or have another webinar at another time. Okay, so I'm going to take one last question here as we're running out of time. All right, I'm familiar with AV and I've done funds. Help me understand fund versus syndicate and how should I decide what to do? Okay, great question. The best way to think about this is the fund, take the health tech fund. The fund gives you immediate diversification that we manage for you. The syndicate gives you control. So you're seeing the same deals that our funds invest in, but you now have the ability to invest deal by deal versus an entire portfolio. And honestly, many investors do both in time. A diversified fund, core fund, plus selective syndicate positions where they want extra exposure is often how we see our investors maturing with us. So with that, I'm going to snap the line there. Kind of final call here. We'd love to talk to you more and share more. So if you want a front row seat to healthcare's AI transformation, please start by joining the Health Tech Syndicate. As I mentioned, it's free. It literally takes 3 minutes, and you'll start seeing the same deals all of our funds are doing today, complete with the memos, market work, all the same work that we put in. So with that, just want to say thank you for spending time with me today. Really looking forward to building and assembling the future of American healthcare, and hopefully we can do it all as partners. So Thank you all. Speak soon.
All right. Awesome, Mike. Thank you. The future of healthcare isn't just smarter. It's faster, more accessible, and even more human. And AI is leading the way. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you're ready to invest in the breakthroughs that will redefine the next era of medicine, scan the QR code or visit av.vc to get started. And we will see you next time.